Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to hear from the members of the trapping committee a little bit, maybe on the criteria on those roads, maybe the 200, why the 200 feet, and why those roads in particular. I mean, I'm not familiar with the area at all, so that's why I just kind of want to get a little background on that.
I think all of us will probably have a little different opinion, but we all saw the same thing. So
that's what I'd like to hear is from you guys.
Commissioner McNitch is ready to go.
I was going to defer to you and Jeremy, but yeah, that's a good question, and in a nutshell, they're not necessarily designated roads like you'd find in a county road. As you go up some of these roads, and we didn't get to see every part of each one of these roads, but as part of our field trip, we did get a chance to at least see portions of them, and they're not 50-mile-an-hour roads. I mean, especially as you go along them and get further up the mountain, they get steep. And matter of fact, I think in a lot of them, only Jeeps would be able to access them. So they're kind of a hybrid between a designated road and a trail. But a lot of folks use them for trails. There's a lot of multi-use on them anyway. So they don't quite fit under the trail system that's up there. So they fall under these other areas that aren't addressed as part of the 200-foot setback for a county or a state-maintained road. And so there was a recognition that maybe something needed to be done there. And I think I won't steal Commissioner Drew's thunder on it, but the thought behind the 200-foot setback was that in the cases where we had been shown where animals had been trapped or pets had, none of them exceeded 200 feet to out. They were all within 200 feet. And that was kind of the theory behind the 200-foot portion. I don't know if that helps. You guys probably have a little more to add.
Yeah, I can add to that. And if you look at your map, Commissioner Wallace, I think that'll help explain some of it. I agree with Dave. I mean, and some of the points that have been brought up in regards to roads and are we setting a precedent is something we may want to look at, because while these are public access roads, there's a lot of other things going on with them. There's a lot of dispersed camping, a lot of mountain biking, obviously hiking with your pet, things of that nature. If you look at a lot of them, they actually will tie in between like State Route 158, 157, or 158 and 156. I think Max Canyon is the only one that is a terminal road, and maybe Telephone Canyon as well, or AWOL Canyon. But for the most part, they're really more of a multi-use route, and maybe something like that would be good. And rather than saying road, make sure we indicate that it's more of a multi-use route and go that way, because I think we do want to be clear that there's more going on here than simply an unmaintained road. You know, in the middle of Esmeralda County is not the same as these routes, and if you hadn't been there, I think that'd be a little bit difficult for you to understand. One of the things in my mind that really brought home kind of the 200-foot thing for me is when we visited with the folks and did some of the tours and were shown where the animals had incidents. What they told to me is, look, what we really ultimately want, one of the individuals said, what I ultimately want is if someone makes a bonehead move by setting a trap too close to one of these areas, it's obviously highly used, I want some accountability. I think 1,000 feet is a punishment. I don't think that's anything to do with accountability. 200 feet, I think, still allows public access to public lands, but it's not shutting down an area. 1,000 feet on Charleston in a lot of these areas due to topography is essentially a closure of a whole lot of areas. So that was kind of my thought process through seeing things on the field tour and our discussions in our committee meeting. I think it resolves the issues that we know of, provides some accountability for folks who maybe not be doing the right thing, in my personal opinion. But I think we may want to clean up some of that language in terms of a road, just to indicate there's a little more going on there.
Yeah, and where I came up was 200 feet. During the field trip, when we first went up towards the mountain, we met with a person that was out with a couple kids on an afternoon adventure, and at the bottom of the Telegraph Canyon, or Telephone Canyon, whatever it's called, and she indicated where her dog was trapped, and it was well within 200 feet. and then we went to the barbecue, and then we went up to where Stephanie Meyer's dog was captured and looked at that site, and where she indicated that dog was caught, it was under 200 feet. And then we went with Steve Brigham and to where his dog was captured, and he showed us where it was, and out of the three of them, it was the furthest distance from the road. At the last trapping committee meeting, he brought in the game warden that responded to his complaint, and the game warden had gone up there, and in the official report that the game warden had offered up, that Steve offered in as evidence during that trapping committee meeting, the game warden indicated he used a certain type of laser rangefinder that I know is extremely accurate, and it was at 147 feet where that dog was captured, and that was the farthest incident that we saw. Mr. Stowalter indicated he has heard of 5 in the last 15 years, so I'm thinking I've been to 60% of the dogs captured over the past 15 years, and they were all within 200 feet of the road. With the topography up there, 200 feet off of those roads is not an easy feat. It was mentioned yesterday that 200 feet is from the podium to the parking lot. I would consider it from the podium to the ceiling here. It's pretty steep. Not very good terrain, very rocky, very brush covered, so it's nothing that a dog can cover in the 10 seconds quoted in the testimony yesterday. It's considerably more challenging than 200 feet in other controlled situations. So with that being said, the 200 feet is something that I've developed a comfort zone with because of multiple reasons. And I spoke to it at the committee meeting. I'm genuine in the fact that I do not want anybody to catch another dog. And I think the trappers are genuine. They don't want to catch any more dogs. And I think that with that 200 feet, we can get there. I brought it up, and John will tell you I've talked to him about this. Just because the new regulation says 200 feet, that doesn't mean that they should set at 201 feet because they're legal. Common sense still needs to play into what everybody's doing. Common sense by a dog owner, common sense by a trapper. We're putting numbers out there, but I'm encouraging everybody to still use common sense on both sides. And if we can all do that, no matter what distance we put out there today, these problems should go away. So that's where I'm at on the 200 feet. Commissioner McBeth.
The legislature passed SB 226, which basically directed the commission to pass a regulation that dealt with restricting trapping with regard to residences. And you know, seeing that that was going to be a big issue when I was chairman of the commission last year, I created the trapping regulation committee, and to deal with that specific issue. We had a 1-year time frame to get that done, and as was reported yesterday, we're very, very close on that. The next thing that I did was I had to appoint a chairman to this committee, and rather than appoint a sportsman, I decided to appoint our conservation rep, Dave McNinch, who, by the way, has more experience on this board than anybody on the board right now. And to be quite honest, was my mentor when I got on the board. I saw how he acted and conducted himself, and had just a great amount of respect for him, and knew he would do a great job. I also appointed 2 sportsmen to that that I have a great amount of respect for. You know, to make sure that the sportsmen were represented. What became out of that SB 226 charges that we probably didn't have enough to deal with all of the potential conflicts between the user groups. And obviously the Mount Charleston issue came up, and the trails, and that expanded to picnic areas, campgrounds, and then ultimately the roads that we have at issue. This committee and this commission has given unprecedented access on this issue. I cannot, at least in the 8 years that I've been doing CAB, on the CAB and now on the commission, I have never seen an issue get as much coverage as this one has, and giving the type of access that we have given to the public, to the general public. And that was duplicated to a great extent on the County Advisory Board in Clark County. And so, and the things that it wasn't just committee meetings, it was them actually getting out on the ground and doing tours and talking. So with their recommendation, where it is, I have a great amount of comfort with it, personally. And so I will be supporting the Trapping Committee's recommendation in my vote. But I want to thank these three individuals. Oh, and the other thing that we did, I expanded the committee to add Tom Padden and Ron Lurie. Tom Padden being a Mount Charleston resident, to make sure that we had that input. And as Chairman Robb has indicated, that Mr. Padden did a lot of legwork in addition to just the time he's been on the commission. And so obviously the detail that has been brought to the regulation probably has a large part to do with his involvement. And so I want to, and when I did all this, to be quite honest, I had absolutely no idea how much time it would take and the commitment that it would take from these gentlemen. And so with that, I want to, thank them. I know they've gotten a lot of praise from everybody, but I especially want to thank them for everything that they've done, and the amount of work that's gone into this regulation makes me feel very comfortable with my decision today. I cannot think of an issue that has been so vetted, and we've heard a lot of emotional testimony from both sides, and but in the end, I think I feel very comfortable with where they have arrived. And so just want to thank you guys for everything that you've done.
Thank you. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm relatively new to this board, obviously. Got into this issue tail end, and wasn't necessarily prepared to see how much passion there was. I equate this to when I was Clark County Sheriff, negotiating with different groups around town and the Valley Coroner's Inquest process, and which is dealing with human lives, and the passion here is almost as great. And I appreciate everybody from both sides, and it's one of those things that you're not going to please everybody, but I certainly echo former Chairman Macbeth's comments about this, particularly the three gentlemen from Northern Nevada that are on this commission that came down here. And I did have an opportunity, since I've been on this board, to attend one of the Trapping Committee meetings, which is at Nandau, I believe, last month, and heard from a lot of different people. And almost everybody comes at it with great passion and from their heart. The one thing that I did hear that was embarrassing to me as a resident of Clark County was a comment by somebody saying that you guys didn't care. And I want to apologize on behalf of a lot of us residents in Clark County. You damn sure do care, because you come down here and you work very, very hard on this. And I too will support your recommendation fully and confidently. And I know it's not perfect, but we can go forward in the future if we see that there's problems. There's nothing that says that we can't readdress this again in our body. So thank you very much, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Any other commission comment? Commissioner Morroy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think under difficult situations, obviously, we as a board have to make a decision here. But the thing that impresses me the most on any of these difficult decisions is if the parties involved on both sides in this case have to give up something to come to an agreement that may be better for everyone. And I think that's happened in this case, with the exception of possibly Commissioner Drew's idea on differentiating the road language from possibly the language that you spoke about. However, that'll work with this LCB deal. But I think that I could support this as written. I also would like to see that language changed.
Okay. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After hearing the explanation, I didn't reiterate or explain myself, but I too feel like I can support. You guys have worked long and hard on this and done the major homework, and I would like to see it clarified as well on the road versus multiple use, and I think that's a very minor. It's wording. It's not changing the matter at hand, but that's where I'm at on that. So, thank you guys for all the work you did on this.
Commissioner Drew.
Just a clarification from the chair. I think the last time I tried to make a motion on this at the committee meeting, I did the whole thing in one shot. So, having learned from that experience, I would suggest that we take this in pieces, if that's okay with you.
That would be very good. Could help us out.
And in doing that, I had just one question for Chief Buonamici, if he's still here. Section 1, number 6, we actually had, and we didn't discuss this, but we had a couple of items, and I think it's just name convention going from Nellis Air Force Base to the Nevada Test and Training Range. So I think we do need to include that as part of our formal.
That is correct. Those are changes made by LCB, just in cleaning up the language. And if I may, with regards to the roads, while I definitely support the spirit of what's been said from an enforcement standpoint, we're going to have difficulty if we use something other than what they are officially called. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, and while you're up there, Rob, I think my intent isn't to change their formal name, but rather than say trapping is prohibited on the following roads, if we said multi-use routes, which is a term that the Forest Service has used in some of their opening and closing of different roads, and then actually listing the names as designated. So it shows that they're more than just a road, but it doesn't change the technical name.
Yeah, as long as we have the technical name in there, we'll be okay.
Yeah, I believe it's just line E that you're looking at making that change
Right,
in,
and I'll get to that
and
when
1,
we-
2, 3, 4, 5.
When we get to that motion, in about 4 motions from now, I'll clarify that, and then maybe we can have a discussion. So with that being said, I would make a motion to approve section 1, number 6, 7, 6 and 7, as suggested by the department for LCB file number R158-12, Commission General Regulation 419.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay. I would make a motion to accept department changes to section 1, number 10, subsection C, including those portions highlighted in yellow, to LCB file number R158-12, Commission General Regulation 419. This would include the 1,000-foot setback, other than with a box or cage trap, for designated hiking trails, campgrounds, and picnic areas.
you know what, I think we gotta clean this up a little bit, Commissioner Drew, because I'm sitting here and it's just dawning on me that maybe we're referring to these sections by the improper name, and I'll explain. If you look under section 1, on page 1, it starts off with subsection A, and then inside there it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the subsections, if you will, 6 and 7. And I'm concerned that we might have mislabeled those. Because these right here would be subsection C, not necessarily 10C. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I will withdraw my motion at this point so we can figure out where we're at here.
So do we need to go
that-
back and clean up
is
our
that-
our first motion? It should, because the initial motion, I think we referenced it as subsection 6 and 7. And the clarification for me as a second on that is that it was in reference to subsection A, subpart 6 and 7. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think we're okay. I think the intent was clear, but on these additional ones here, we might want to make that distinction.
Yeah, I'll ask David Newton. I mean, I think staff understood our intent, and I think everybody in the audience understood the intent of the motion that just passed. Do we need to revisit that if the intent is understood?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
Sorry to bring that up now, it just hit me, so.
Okay, so I will restate my second motion to be, I would move to approve the revision to NAC 504.340, Section 1, Sub A, C of LCB file number R158-12, Commission Regulation 419. This is the portion of the regulation regarding prohibition of trapping other than with a box or cage trap within 1,000 feet of the listed designated hiking trails, campgrounds, and picnic areas. And my motion would include those listed and highlighted in yellow per the revision of the trapping committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve the proposed changes to NAC 504.340, Section 1, Sub A.
I think, if we can
Number
interrupt, it
10.
would just be D, just
D.
sub D,
Sub D,
subsection
wouldn't
D.
Sub D, this is the prohibition on trapping within a half mile of residence in the Spring Mountain National Recreation, including Township 19 South, Range 59 East, Sections 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 16.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion, questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion unanimous.
Okay, so I'd make a motion to amend NAC 504.340, Sub E, as written in the yellow highlights, and recommended by the Trapping Committee with the following exception. That E would read, trapping is prohibited within 200 feet of each side of the following designated multi-use routes, with multi-use routes replacing roads. And just to be clear, numbers 1 through 5 would remain listed unchanged.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any, Commissioner Raines?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think that on this one, while the portion of multi-use routes is fine, we should go along with the Clark County Advisory Board's language on the rest of it. That is a reasonable modification. We've already come up with, under B, C, and D, far more than is reasonable. perhaps, in way of restricting these people, these others. It doesn't seem any particular point, and therefore I move to amend the motion while incorporating the language under the first line about multi-use routes, for the rest of it to reflect Clark County's recommendation for striking 2, 3, 4, 5, and incorporating their language about the first mile of Max Canyon Road from the intersection of Highway 156.
Just to be clear, I would not accept that as a friendly amendment, so
Yep.
I believe it would need a second
The
to
sec-
discuss.
The second would be in the same space. I will not accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay. With that being said, any further discussion?
It's you'd probably die for lack, it's an amendment, so you ask for a second, and then if there's not, go back to the main motion.
Okay, so we're back to the main motion.
As for an amendment.
Ask for
Oh,
a second.
is there a second on-
second to that amendment?
Does anybody have a second? Seeing none, it dies for lack of a second. Okay.
And let me just explain, because I think the cab deserves an explanation given the time and effort they've put into this. I think that their proposal would probably be fine right now, but given everything that's going on with those areas and the development that's going on and the different trails and route designations and everything that's going to be happening within the next 2 to 3 years, I don't know that it gets us any further into the future. And I'd rather not come back and rehash this unless we absolutely have to. And so that's kind of where I'm coming at with this.
And I'll make a comment on it too, just from my standpoint. I want everybody to know that, and I probably speak for everybody else. I'm not going to. I'll speak for myself. But I'm not making these decisions aren't being taken lightly by me. I'm fully aware that it's impacting people and the things that they do. There's no way around that. It's going to impact, and I'm not taking these decisions lightly. I know, it might seem a little flip because of where we're at in the process, but I do take it very seriously, and I do realize that there are impacts. I think these are reasonable. I'm not sure where I'm at with the word compromise, but I like the term balance. I think that we've kind of worked out a balance at this point. And I think it is reasonable, and I agree with some of the comments that have been made. If it's really broke, there's no reason why we can't take a look at it in the future one way or the other, and I'll keep an open mind with that. And that's why I support what we've done as a committee at this point. So.
Okay, any further discussion? Commissioner Rainey.
The reason I support Clark County's decisions, I was reading through their minutes and the number of people that have come and the logic that was expressed in those minutes and through those meetings was exemplary. The compromises and one thing about it's not even almost a compromise. The statement saying, well, everybody's lost something. Well, actually no, as was eloquently stated by one member of the head of the Trapping Association yesterday. One group has lost a lot. There's only one group has lost and the other one has gained. There was no loss on both sides. This is all 100% loss on one side, let there be no doubt. And this is just, adding aggravation to something of a legitimate industry that produces for this country. And it's sad to, further restrict